Hey, I'm Taylor Danielle, and welcome back to Healing in Hindsight. Let's talk about money, but not in that toxic, manifest abundance way. Not that, that's bad, but it just feels a little unrealistic sometimes. I'm talking about the messy, complicated relationship millennials have with wealth when you grew up thinking rich people were automatically evil, but now you're trying to build generational wealth while still shopping at Target. Wait, didn't we? We said no to Target. All right. We said no to Target, right? How do we want that type of financial freedom without becoming the villain in someone else's story? How do we embrace what many call rich girl energy when we were programmed to believe that wanting money makes us greedy or shallow? So today, we're getting real about money mindset, the invisible advantages you can't see behind other people's success, and why sometimes the most financially empowering thing you can do is admit you're still figuring it out. If you've ever felt guilty for wanting financial security, or if you're trying to build wealth while unlearning everything you were taught about money, this one's for you. Let me start with where my money story began, because it was complicated from day one. Growing up, money was talked about in scarcity. On one hand, there was never enough. And I developed this internal responsibility to not ask for things because I didn't want to cause more issues with our finances. I was very much trying to protect my parents because I saw the struggle. And I think they didn't fully realize that I saw it. But then on the other hand, I was raised Christian, so tithing was emphasized. And my parents did teach me about credit and why we need good credit. It was this mixed bag of you can get to a place of being comfortable, but it always felt like an uphill battle. The education I got was very traditional: work hard, do the right things. And it was mostly around budgeting and building credit, but never really how to grow money. Even my dad, we've had multiple conversations where he's mentioned not fully understanding about stocks and things like that, but trying to get more versed in it and not being sure how to really help beyond the basics. It wasn't the education you'd see in families with generational wealth, especially in minority ones. I got the protection education. Don't mess up your credit. Budget what you have, but not the growth education that privileged families typically pass down. Honestly, I didn't realize this gap existed until I was a teenager going into adulthood. Social media became my unofficial financial education, especially when I started an LLC. All I knew was credit is king, but I didn't know anything about financial assets, portfolios, or even how 401ks really work. I still don't fully understand them. I know that they're important, and I understand that it is for retirement, and it's in a way tied to stocks, and it can grow and it can shrink. And I have pieces of understanding, but there's still a lot that I know that I could learn. And so learning financial concepts through social media has been overwhelming because there are too many resources providing advice. And let's be real, when everybody has a microphone, you don't know who to believe. I'm still working through that. It's just a lot, and the information overload is real when everyone online positions themselves as the financial guru you should follow, or everybody's got the play that you should make. But what I've learned about rich girl energy, or rich guy energy, or rich them energy, is that it might not be what you expect. For me, it's not about the bag or the status symbols. Rich girl energy is being fully aware and in control of my finances. I'm not always feeling like I'm scrambling, being comfortable enough that I don't have to check my bank account before every transaction. That's the goal. Sure, maybe not yacht money, just peace of mind money. I feel like we could all, get along with that. Peace of mind money. So with multiple layoffs and multiple attempts at building my own thing, it has been a roller coaster for me in terms of trying to build something that lasts, but also is steady. And so right now I'm in rebuilding mode financially. I had gotten to a point years ago where I was 2 months ahead on rent and would even have some surplus. I felt really secure. I wasn't in survival mode anymore. That was huge for me. I had spent a good, if not most of my 20s, constantly scrambling for cash, constantly spending it on the wrong things, and constantly feeling like there was never enough. When people talked about having savings, I laughed, because what is savings? Not what is a savings account. Had one of those, but as soon as money was put into it, it come right back out because something always came up. And so going into my early 20s, or excuse me, my early 30s, that's when I finally got like stable. I got a job that I grew in, and not only grew in terms of promotions and things like that, but just in skill set, in mindset, in so many things that provided me a salary that allowed me to do so much more. And sure, looking back, I do feel like I could have made smarter decisions for sure, but I still appreciate that I got to a place of stability that I hadn't experienced before. And so even during the pandemic, I was doing okay. Had some moments along the way, but pretty much from 30 on, I was stable. I wasn't in survival mode. I was able to keep myself afloat. I was still able to enjoy things. But then I got married and my husband bought a house, and now we have a mortgage. But then both of us experienced layoffs, and suddenly I had to start over financially. It's frustrating, but it's more relieving than frustrating because at least there's something steady coming in now. There was a point where I was like, I don't know where I'm going to get money to pay bills. And that uncertainty is terrifying. Now that I have some form of income again, things like business expenses can start to exist. I can start to invest in tools that help me automate versus just surviving. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, thankfully. This experience of real financial insecurity changed how I think about money completely. Going through that period where every dollar went to survival made me more strategic about spending. Not more cautious, although I will say some caution, but for sure strategic. I had to really examine my spending habits and how I sometimes used purchases to comfort myself, especially in content creation. The reality is that stuff doesn't make things happen, but I still need certain tools to actually do my work. Learning to distinguish between comfort spending and necessary investments has been huge. So now I ask myself specific questions before any purchase. What task is this covering? Is this something that can be automated? Is this something that's going to take care of multiple tasks? Or is this something that's only solving one immediate need, but creating 3 or 4 other problems? So for example, I was using a social media scheduler, like many, people do. It's not really a need. It's a nice to have. A lot of things have now built-in scheduling. Everybody now schedules, and so it's almost overwhelming because one tool will schedule everything, then another tool will also schedule other things, but they only will schedule whatever is made in that specific tool. It's kind of annoying. But the one thing that I was using that I preferred was expensive. It wasn't really designed for an individual, it's more so for teams. But I loved it because I can schedule things all in one, and it could talk to so many things. But I knew that I could schedule things another way. So I asked myself if it can be done manually, but maybe not with the simplicity that I'd like. is it really worth paying for? And at the end of the day, it depends on whether the tool is taking a load off my plate versus putting more on it. I definitely get analysis paralysis because I can convince myself something might be worth using because it'll solve so many problems, but then I don't actually use it because I'm stuck somewhere else, like actually creating the content for the tool to schedule. The other thing that I realized in getting more comfortable and familiar with my ADHD and how my mind works is aspirational spending and wanting to invest in things because I see myself using it in a way that would be beneficial to me, that would take a load off my plate. But as a friend of mine said, you have to work the tool if you want it to work for you. So part of stripping some tools away is so that I can get back into the habit of creating. Once I'm consistently creating content, then automation tools become worth the investment. I've also shifted to looking at yearly subscriptions instead of paying for something every month. It takes away the immediate depletion of resources because it's only being done once a year. Plus, I can aim for higher quality tools when I do invest. Some tools I already have gotten major upgrades. Things like Descript. I love Descript. I will always jump from the rooftops, not from the rooftops. I will jump up and down on a rooftop screaming about Descript and how they've added more automation features, things that are super helpful for me, especially as a production team of one. Other tools like Opus Clips, which creates short form content that does really well on social media. I'm getting more value from existing investments rather than constantly buying new ones. Now I look at what tools are currently doing, and roadmaps are just a company's way of showing here's where we're at, here's what we'd like to do next, and here are things that we have planned for the future, but we can't really tackle immediately right now. And sometimes roadmaps just aren't fast enough for what I need, which makes sense, but some I can totally wait for. So like when Descript purchased Squadcast, that was perfect timing. Suddenly I had remote interview capabilities built into a tool that I already use, plus another backup place to store recording projects. And it works with my equipment. My camera can shoot in 4K, and while I don't need it per se, it's nice knowing that once it becomes a lot more standard, then I can do that. I already have tools that can handle it. I'm not as quick to purchase anymore on certain things. There's other things that I still have to work on, but I do think about how something will make my life easier, whether it's something my husband could use too, since he also creates content, and how it can expand and grow with me. If it's just short-term value, is it really worth the investment and the possible learning curve? I would say my biggest financial goal right now is allowing my side business to cover my expenses, which is about $400 a month. If I can get that income stream to bring in $400 a month, then it sustains itself. And that's not including my full-time job income. Then my stretch goals build from there. First, match my full-time job income with the business, then double it. I want my full-time job to honestly just be something to do when I want to take a break from content creation. You know, like the current job I'm in gives me so much more flexibility. So I don't need to immediately jump ship if I can do both sustainably. And quite honestly, I don't want to right now. If I'm going to put in all this effort into building my show and business, I want to ensure I'm getting a return on that investment, because I have poured a lot of time and money into this vision. And over the span of 5 years, I really don't want it to fizzle out with everything that I've put in it simply because I was not showing up for myself in it. So that's the next step, figuring out how to monetize beyond just, digital products. Collaborations and sponsorships will always be a part of the plan. I think it's awesome when companies do partner with creators who enjoy their products. To me, it's a nice go-between having a marketing team, but also real user experience. I don't really see myself wanting to do things like coaching. I do have interest in the coaching education for my own development, maybe a masterclass here and there, but I'm still trying to figure out what my thing is that I would even teach. And in a way, this is kind of why this show exists. It's to help me refine my thoughts and see what people respond to. I want to understand what value people are getting from me. And I don't want it to be something I don't feel comfortable leaning into. I want to ensure that everything that I share comes from my own authentic experience. I do have a goal of getting back to an email newsletter so people have a more direct line to me without overwhelming myself. I want to hear from you guys. I want to be able to understand what you resonate with and what things, whether it's tools or classes, would be helpful. But honestly, just thinking about email gives me anxiety because with the amount of stuff people get in their inbox, I genuinely worry about asking for people's email addresses. The freebie model that everyone uses feels a little icky. Like I have to go with the used car salesman tactics just to get people to trust me with their information. And I don't want that. I'd rather flip the approach. Instead of like, how do I get people to give me their email? I want to think, what can I send that's so valuable people would actually want to receive it? That's kind of where I'm at. So would it be things I'm doing day to day that might not lead to a full podcast episode, or some type of digital product like worksheets and journals and maybe tools that I use myself? What kind of things make sense for me to create that can help me make a living, but I can still feel good about offering? It's a lot to think about, but you know, that's my take. That's how I feel about this whole rich girl energy vibe. It's not about lifestyle or the luxury. It's about the peace of mind. It's about being strategic instead of scattered, building systems that actually work for your life, and recognizing that your path to financial freedom doesn't have to look like anyone else's. The biggest shift for me has been really focusing on separating comfort spending from strategic investment and learning that rebuilding after a setback is part of the journey. It does not mean that it's a failure. If you're working through your own money mindset issues, trying to balance wanting financial security with feeling guilty about wanting money, or if you're building something while working full time and wondering if it's even worth the effort, I see you. Your relationship with money is allowed to evolve. You're allowed to want financial freedom. You're allowed to want that freedom without wanting a yacht. You're allowed to be strategic about spending without being cheap. You're allowed to build wealth in a way that aligns with your values, even if it takes longer than Instagram entrepreneurs make it look. Here's what I want from you. Hit me up on LinkedIn or Instagram at Healing in Hindsight and tell me about your own money mindset shifts, your strategic spending wins, or the financial goals you're working towards that feel authentic to you. And if this episode helped you think differently about money or gave you permission to want financial freedom on your terms, please leave a review. Other people are trying to build wealth while staying true to their values, and they need to find conversations like this too. Until next time, remember, rich girl energy doesn't have to be about the bag. It's about the boundaries. Keep building, keep healing, keep hustling, but make it real.